Hello, today we're at Thermal Research and Development. We're going to do the install video of the Chevy Corvette C7 exhaust system. First thing to do is to remove the lower half of the bumper. We start out by removing the screws that run along the bottom of the bumper, both on the passenger and driver's side, and we do that with a 7mm socket. We're going to come up above the tips, and you'll find two screws with 10mm heads on that we're going to remove. We're going to go up to the license plate, find two Phillips heads there that will remove the license plate. Come up here and remove this grated air vent that's on both the left and right side of the bumper, and we're going to do that by reaching up under the bumper to where we fill that vent and separating it. Next we're going to go after the reflective strip on both sides. And we do this by reaching our hand way up in there, and there's three tabs. And you'll find the one closest to the outside, then move your hand along to the next one. Finally the last one. And these are the three tabs. You're just pinching in enough so it'll pop out. With those reflectors removed, we'll recognize two more bolts behind them, and with the 10mm socket, we'll remove both those as well. Now that we removed the license plate, we're going to find two more screws hidden back behind there. They also have a 10mm head on them. The bumper is now just being held on by plastic clips that run along the whole upper edge of it. So we're going to start on one side and we're going to snap them off one at a time. And we do need somebody to help support the bumper at this time. Now in the automatic version, we want to disconnect the shifter linkage from the transmission. With a 15mm wrench, we're going to come up here and remove the nut off the linkage. With a little bit of pressure, pop that lever off the stud. We want to remember how it came off for reinstallation, and that is that lever goes upwards towards the top of the car. Now we want to disconnect the actuators, and we want to be careful with this. When it comes to the connection, there's a little tab that will pop out, and then we'll work it off. We remove the passenger side muffler first. We want to support it with a stand. We're going to split the two bolts that connect the passenger side and driver side muffler together. And we're going to disconnect the two bolts that hold the hanger in place, which will allow us to drop it down. I'm going to remove this factory hanger, maintain it for reinstallation. We have another valve on the automatics that's up over the axle. It has the same electrical clip as the rear. We want to get up there and pop that tab and remove it from that valve as well. Come up and loosen up this clamp on the passenger side where the exhaust system connects into the mid pipe. You don't have to remove this hardware all the way off because the clamp is welded onto the pipe, so it's not coming off anyways. We just want to make sure there's no tension on that connection anymore. At this point, we're going to remove our support. Work our exhaust system out of the connection. Fill the top three. And we kindly pull the unit down. We're now going to repeat this process on the driver's side. Now we're going to remove the actuator from the valves. The rear ones are equipped if you have the sound package. The front actuators come with the automatic transmission. You want to remember the location of the actuator itself and reinstall that on the thermal system in its same spot. there's 3 bolts, 8mm heads on them that we'll remove, and we'll retain them as well for reinstallation. We're now going to reinstall the actuator in its original position, and we're going to start with the driver's side. Notice that there's cutouts in the actuator valve that the electronic motor will connect to. You may need some slight caulking to align the 3 holes, but it won't be more than a few degrees. We're then going to repeat that process on the passenger side. At this point, we can reinstall the shifter cable. It's easier to get to with the exhaust system and out, and it will not get in the way of the installation of the thermal system. Your thermal kit will be supplied with 2 85-degree bends, and they're both identical for the left and for the right, and 3-inch double compression clamps. You slide it over the 3-inch end, bring it down so about you're halfway inserted there. Give yourself a witness mark there. That'll be important later during assembly. So for the driver's side, you want the bolts on the back side of the bend and what will be facing in towards the transmission. Once you have your witness mark, you're going to bend it in a little bit so you're twisting it in towards the transmission for clearance. And then put it up into position. Slide it into the mid-pipe. Tap it in and make sure you have clearance. I'm going to let that set like that for now. We're now going to do the same thing with the passenger side. Start by installing the driver's side. We're going to put the pipe up over the axle, down into the area of that clamp. I'm going to work to get that pipe down into the clamp with our clamp lined up with our previous witness mark. We want to plug in the valve, make sure we get a good click, and push our trigger back in place. We're going to connect this rear actuator, and when you push it on, you want to hear the click. You want to push the little trigger in, but then you also want to pull it back out. If the trigger is weakening, it'll pop right off, in which case when the vehicle is running, you're going to get a check engine light. If you're pushing it on, pushing your trigger in, and it still will not hold itself on, we'll normally run a zip tie all the way around the actuator in between the wires of the clip to ensure it doesn't fall off during driving. Now we tighten everything up enough to hold it in place, loose enough so we still have some adjustability left in it. As we add the passenger side, we're going to need that. We're going to repeat the same process with the passenger side now. Okay, with the passenger side into the front clamp, but not tight, I'm going to hook up our electrical. Our support hanger. Tighten up the clamps fully into place on both sides. We're going to tighten the 2 bolts that hold the left and the right muffler together, and at this point is where we're going to put a level across the bottom of the tips, making sure they're all straight, because that's where we can get our adjustability on that. We can come back up front and tighten all the connections for a final tightening at this point. With the exhaust attached, we're now going to reassemble the rear bumper valance. We're going to pretty much reverse the order of removal, starting on the right side and clicking the top links in. after the system's installed and the bumper's reassembled, you want to look over everything and make sure you haven't missed anything, you don't have any leftover parts. And you want to take it on a good break-in drive, something of 5 to 20 miles, and take another look at it, check all your fittings and your connections, and you're good to go.